Reckoning on the water, the sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting a golden glow over the quiet coastal town of Clearwater Bay. The docks were nearly empty, save for the occasional fisherman securing his boat for the night. Among them was a solitary figure, Jonas Reed, a man of few words and a past hidden beneath the waves. Jonas had lived in Clearwater Bay for the past 3 years, content with his simple life as a fisherman. The locals respected him, though none knew much about him. He never spoke of where he came from, and no one dared to ask. They only knew he was a man of the sea, a master of the currents, and someone you wouldn't want to cross. One evening, a group of bikers roared into town, their loud engines shattering the peace. They called themselves the Vultures, a ruthless gang that thrived on intimidation and destruction. They had been causing trouble up and down the coast, vandalizing property, and robbing anyone too weak to resist. That night, fueled by whiskey and arrogance, they stumbled onto the docks, looking for trouble. Their leader, a tattooed brute named Axel, spotted Jonas' boat, a sturdy, well-kept fishing vessel named the Widowmaker. "Look at this beauty," Axel sneered. "Bet the old fisherman spent his life savings on it." His gang laughed as they pulled out knives and spray cans. Within minutes, they slashed the nets, shattered the windows, and painted crude symbols on the hull. One of them even took a hammer to the engine, smashing it with drunken delight. Jonas, who had been returning from the bait shop, arrived just in time to witness the destruction. He didn't shout. He didn't run toward them in anger. He simply stood still, watching. "Hey, old man," Axel jeered. "You should have locked up better." Jonas took a deep breath and stepped forward, his icy blue eyes locking onto Axel's. There was no fear in them, only the calm before a storm. "You made a mistake," Jonas said, his voice like rolling thunder. Axel laughed. "What's that, old man?" Jonas took another step closer. "You shouldn't have touched my boat." The bikers exchanged amused glances before Axel pulled out a knife. "You want to do something about it, Grandpa?" Jonas didn't answer. Instead, he moved. Faster than anyone could react, he grabbed Axel's wrist, twisting it with bone-snapping precision. The knife clattered to the dock as Axel howled in pain. Before the others could react, Jonas delivered a brutal kick to another biker's knee, sending him collapsing into the wooden planks. The remaining gang members hesitated. This wasn't an old fisherman. This was something else. Axel groaned, looking up through the pain. "What the hell are you?" Jonas exhaled slowly. "Once upon a time, I was a Marine. The kind that doesn't come home with medals. The kind sent in when the government wants something eliminated." Recognition dawned in Axel's eyes. The name Jonas Reed wasn't just known in military circles. It was feared. Stories of an elite operative, a ghost who could eliminate entire squads without making a sound, had circulated for years. Jonas knelt beside Axel. "Now, listen carefully," he whispered. "You're going to pay for every piece of damage you did to my boat. Then, you're going to leave Clearwater Bay and never come back. If I see you again." He let the words hang in the air. Axel nodded frantically. His men scrambled to their feet, dragging their wounded along with them. By morning, they had wired Jonas enough money to fix his boat twice over. By afternoon, they had vanished from town. Jonas spent the next few days repairing the Widowmaker, whistling softly as he worked. Life on the sea had taught him patience, and some lessons, like respect, needed to be taught the hard way. As the sun set again over Clearwater Bay, the water was peaceful once more, and Jonas Reed returned to what he did best: fishing by day, watching the horizon by night, and waiting for anyone foolish enough to disturb the quiet. For a week, Clearwater Bay remained quiet. The vultures had disappeared, and Jonas returned to his daily routine. But deep inside, he knew trouble wasn't over. Men like Axel didn't just back down forever. One evening, as Jonas was checking the final repairs on the Widowmaker, a familiar sound rumbled in the distance: motorcycles. He turned to see 3 black SUVs rolling into town, followed by a dozen bikers. This wasn't just Axel and his drunken friends. This was a full crew, and they weren't here for small talk. The locals scattered, locking their doors and pulling their children inside. The bikers parked in front of the docks, and out of the lead SUV stepped a man in a crisp white suit. Unlike the leather-clad thugs beside him, he carried himself with quiet confidence, the kind that spoke of real power. Jonas recognized the look. He had seen it before, in warlords, Cartel leaders and mercenaries, the ones who never got their hands dirty but ordered death like it was a morning coffee. The man adjusted his cufflinks and smiled. "Jonas Reed," he said, his voice smooth. "You know, it took a bit of digging, but I figured out who you really are." Jonas said nothing. He just stared. The man gestured to the ruined remains of a cigarette in his hand. "My name's Vincent Morrow. You hurt some of my men. I don't like that." Jonas remained silent, his hands resting on the edge of his boat. Morrow exhaled, feigning disappointment. "I've met a lot of killers, Jonas. But you're something else. The Widowmaker of the Deep. The government's secret weapon. A ghost." He grinned. "But now, you're just an old man with a broken boat." Jonas' fingers tensed slightly at the words, but he didn't respond. Morrow sighed dramatically. "Here's the deal. My guys lost some money because of you. You pay me back, double, and we forget this ever happened. Otherwise..." He gestured to his men, who began fanning out across the docks. Jonas finally spoke. "You don't want to do this." Morrow chuckled. "Oh, I think I do." He gave a small nod, and the bikers moved in. Jonas sighed. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this. Then he moved. Faster than any of them could react, he grabbed a thick mooring rope and snapped it like a whip, catching the nearest biker across the face. He followed it with a brutal punch that sent the man crumpling into the water. Another thug lunged with a crowbar. Jonas sidestepped effortlessly, grabbed the man's wrist, and twisted, eliciting a sickening pop before sending him sprawling to the dock. Chaos erupted. The bikers charged. Jonas ducked, weaved, and struck with the precision of a trained killer. One went down with a shattered kneecap, another with a broken nose. Two more tried to gang up on him, but Jonas flipped one into the other, sending them both tumbling into the sea. Within seconds, half of Morrow's men were groaning on the ground. Morrow himself had taken a step back, eyes wide. With the Jonas turned to face him. "You should walk away. Now." Morrow's jaw clenched. He reached into his jacket, pulling a sleek silver pistol. Jonas didn't hesitate. With a flick of his wrist, he sent a fishing knife flying through the air. It struck Morrow's hand with pinpoint accuracy, forcing him to drop the gun. He let out a cry of pain as blood dripped onto the dock. Jonas picked up the fallen weapon and calmly removed the magazine. He tossed it into the water before looking down at Morrow. "You're leaving." Morrow cradled his wounded hand, his face pale with shock. You don't know who I work for." Jonas stepped closer, his voice cold. "And they don't know who I am. But they will, if you ever come back." For a long moment, Morrow just stared. Then he nodded to his remaining men. "Get in the cars. We're done here." As the SUVs roared away, Jonas let out a slow breath. The town emerged from their homes, staring at him with newfound respect and a little fear. The local sheriff, an older man named Clay, walked up beside Jonas. "You just made a lot of enemies, Reed." Jonas looked at him. "They were never my friends to begin with." Clay smirked. "You gonna be all right?" Jonas gazed out at the darkening horizon. "I always am." As the last of the sunlight faded over Clearwater Bay, Jonas knew one thing for certain: his past had finally caught up with him. But if trouble wanted to find him again, he'd be ready. Jonas knew it wasn't over. Morrow might have slithered away, but men like him never forgot a humiliation. They didn't forgive. They only regrouped. For the next few days, Clearwater Bay remained quiet. Too quiet. The usual chatter at the docks was subdued, the locals on edge. Everyone had seen what happened, and they knew it was only a matter of time before trouble came knocking again. Jonas didn't wait for it. He prepared. A storm brewing under the cover of darkness, he made modifications to the Widowmaker. He reinforced the hull, concealed weapons in hidden compartments, and installed a makeshift smoke system, old tricks from his past. He spent hours sharpening his blades, cleaning his firearms, and mapping out every possible escape route. And then, late one night, it happened. A low rumble echoed through the town, the sound of multiple vehicles approaching from the highway. But this time, it wasn't just a gang of bikers. It was something worse. Blacked-out SUVs. A military-style truck. Armed men in tactical gear. Jonas watched from his boat as they rolled into the docks, the town holding its breath. From the lead SUV stepped a new face, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a scar running from his forehead to his cheek. He wore combat boots, a tactical vest, and carried himself like a soldier. Jonas knew exactly who he was. Colton Briggs. A former Black Ops operative. A ruthless mercenary. And Morrow's personal enforcer. Jonas sighed. They really don't learn. Briggs scanned the docks, his cold eyes locking onto Jonas. A smirk crossed his face. Jonas Reed, he called out. Been a long time. Jonas remained where he was, leaning against the railing of his boat. Not long enough. Briggs chuckled. I heard you've been playing fisherman. Didn't figure you for the quiet life? Jonas shrugged. Didn't figure you for Morrow's errand boy. Briggs' smirk faded. He pays well. Until he doesn't, Jonas said. What do you want, Colton? Briggs took a step forward. Morrow's embarrassed. You made him look weak. He can't let that stand. Jonas exhaled. So what's the plan? You shoot me in front of the whole town? Not really your style. Briggs shook his head. Nah. Morrow wants you alive. He wants to make an example out of you. He gestured to the men around him, at least 15, all armed to the teeth. You coming easy, or are we doing this the hard way? Jonas gave a slow, knowing smile. I don't do easy. The fight begins, Briggs sighed. Didn't think so. Then he gave the signal. The mercenaries moved fast, but Jonas was faster. He dove off the Widowmaker just as the first shots rang out, vanishing into the water. Bullets shredded through the boat's deck, but he was already gone. The men scanned the dark water, weapons raised. Where is he? One muttered. Briggs narrowed his eyes. Stay sharp. He's not running. And he was right. Jonas wasn't running. He was hunting. One of the mercenaries stepped too close to the edge of the dock. In a flash, a wet, powerful hand shot out of the water, yanking him down. He barely had time to scream before he vanished beneath the surface. Another man turned just in time to see Jonas rising from the water like a ghost, knife in hand. A swift, brutal slash to the throat ended his fight before it even began. Panic spread through the ranks. The hunters had become the hunted. Jonas moved through the shadows, striking with precision. One by one, the mercenaries fell. A snapped neck. A silenced gunshot. A knife plunged into the ribs. Briggs cursed. Damn it. Light up the docks. His men opened fire, spraying bullets wildly. But Jonas was already gone, slipping into the maze of boats and crates. He re-emerged near the Widowmaker, setting off a flare. The sudden burst of red light blinded the mercenaries for a crucial moment, just enough time for Jonas to grab his rifle and take position. Then, the real fight began. Jonas fired with ruthless efficiency, dropping the remaining mercenaries one by one. His bullets never missed. Every shot was precise, calculated. Soon, only Briggs remained. The final showdown. Briggs, now bleeding from a grazing wound on his arm, growled in frustration. He turned in circles, trying to spot Jonas in the darkness. You still got it, Reed, he admitted. But I ain't going down easy. Jonas stepped out of the shadows, holding a knife in one hand. Good. Briggs charged. The two men clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Fists, elbows, knees, every move was executed with deadly skill. Jonas fought with the fluidity of a ghost, dodging, countering, striking. But Briggs was a tank, relentless, powerful. They battled across the docks, each trying to get the upper hand. A punch sent Jonas reeling, but he recovered instantly, countering with a devastating knee to Briggs' gut. Briggs stumbled, gasping for air. Jonas saw his opening. With one swift motion, he grabbed Briggs' head and slammed it into a nearby crate. The big man crumpled to the ground, dazed. Jonas knelt beside him. Tell Morrow. I'm not going anywhere. Briggs, barely conscious, nodded weakly. Jonas stood and looked around. The fight was over. Bodies littered the docks, the town eerily silent. The people of Clearwater Bay had watched it all unfold, and now they knew Jonas Reed wasn't just a fisherman. He was a legend. Aftermath. By morning, the sheriff showed up, shaking his head. Gonna be hard explaining all this. Jonas smirked. You didn't see anything. Clay sighed. Yeah, that's what I figured. As for Morrow, he got the message loud and clear. His men were either dead or broken. He never sent anyone after Jonas again. And so, Clearwater Bay returned to peace. Jonas Reed went back to fishing. But now, whenever someone new came into town and asked about the quiet man on the docks, the locals only had one thing to say: don't mess with the fisherman.